Executive Insider es auspiciado por América Economía, Centrum Book y Bigmont Top Executive Search.
Diversity management today is part of the business strategy of the most important companies in the world. A McKinsey study of 2017 showed that companies with racially diverse teams are 35% more likely to have financial returns than non-diverse ones. Let's recall principle number 6 of the Global Pact of the United Nations establishes the elimination of discrimination in employment and occupation. Today, we will interview Beatrice Opoku-Asare, Global Director of Inclusion and Diversity at Newmont Mining. Beatrice, welcome to Peru. Thank you for receiving us.
Absolutely.
How do you like Peru so far?
I love it. It reminds me of home. Even though it's very far away from home, a lot of the things here remind me of home. The taxis, the small cabbies, everything reminds me of home.
Great. Tell us about Newmont's diversity and inclusion initiatives globally and in Peru.
So inclusion is one of our core values. We have 5 core values: safety, sustainability, responsibility, integrity, and inclusion. And so we feel that inclusion is what helps you to make diversity a success. If you have diversity and you don't have inclusion, you create chaos because you want everybody around you to be able to leverage that diversity. So when we talk about inclusion and diversity, first of all, it's a core value. We cannot throw it away. We cannot decide not to be inclusive. We want to continue to be inclusive. And then we have a 3-pronged strategy. So we focus on the workplace, which really is the inclusion portion. We have the workforce, which is the diversity piece that focuses on, our near-term focus is on gender. The other piece is on nationals, and the last one is on local employees, so employees within our catchment area. And then the last part is the community. So the community piece is we want to be an industry leader in inclusion and diversity.
How does diversity and inclusion contribute to the competitiveness of companies?
Diversity and inclusion is really critical for all companies, whether you're doing it right now or you're not doing it. The first one is it helps you to make richer decisions. Imagine that you, Luciana, sit in your room and do the executive summary and the strategy for your entire company. You don't talk to anybody. And then compare that to you have a diverse group of people in a room, you discuss the strategy, and then you come up with what you want to do going forward. Which one do you think is going to be a better strategy? Mm-hmm. The one that you do in your room by yourself, or the one that you have a diverse group of people looking into? So it helps you to make definitely richer decisions. We all see things very differently. I have different experiences and you have different experiences as well. The second one is it helps you to manage risk better. When I say risk, what I mean is what I would see as a risk is not what you would see as a risk. So once we have that strategy, I can come up with ideas that you would not have come up with, and so we are able to manage risks that not each of us would be able to have seen those risks. The third one is unintended consequences. Sometimes you have the best of interest, but you go out there and you do it and something else happens as an unintended consequence, right? So diversity and inclusion helps you to identify all those unintended consequences so that you can actually manage them better. And so inclusion really creates an environment of belonging so that even though you're different, you will still feel that I can contribute my best to whatever is being discussed.
Beatrice, what are the main barriers faced by companies who want to implement policies and good practices of diversity and inclusion?
I would say the first one is unconscious bias. You don't know what you don't know, right? So imagine you are in a company of all men. None of you has ever had a baby. So there's no way anybody is going to think we should have a place for people who have a baby and they want to express milk. It's not because the men in there are terrible or they are bad people. It's just not their experience. It's not something that they would intentionally talk about and think about that we should have that here. So unconscious bias is really the way our brain works. The other challenge is a lot of backlash. Once organizations start this process, people are like, are you trying to say you want to fire me from this job? I don't know how, I'm involved in this, especially people in the majority group. So a lot of organizations become very afraid to actually start anything in the inclusion and diversity space. And the last one is people just don't know what to do. They don't know how to start the process. They don't have the framework and the guidance to really start the process. And at Newmont, we have signed on to an organization called Paradigm for Parity. And Paradigm for Parity is a framework of toolkits and roadmaps. And so we follow that framework. So that has definitely helped us a lot at Newmont. And I think that is the third piece that organizations lack. They just don't know how to start or where to start.
What is your vision for the future of the D&I space in the workforce for global companies like Newmont Mining?
So for us at Newmont, when we think about inclusion globally, because of Paradigm for Parity, we've been able to do a good analysis of where we really are. We know what the data looks like. We know what retention looks like. We have the data to support it. But we also globally did focus groups with about close to 800 of our employees to try and go beyond the data and try to understand what is not working. Basically, what we're trying to do is to understand the root causes of our problems, right? So going forward, we're using those root causes to try and understand what we want to do in terms of the future.
Thank you so much for sharing these practices with us. And as you say, I think it's so important, starting with global companies who have this big impact in the world, to integrate the workforce and the community, right?
Absolutely, and thanks to Executive Insider for coming to interview us about this. It's really great that an organization that focuses on inclusion and diversity can partner with an organization like yours as well. Thanks for having me.
An honor for us. It's been a really inspirational talk and great to learn from a leader like you, Beatrice.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. This has been an inspiring interview with a lot of learning. We have been able to know that world-class companies incorporate inclusion and diversity policies and practices into their strategic planning, that diversity does not work without inclusion policies, and that the success depends a lot on the commitment of the leaders of the organization. I'm Luciana Moreno, and this was Executive Insider.